Thank you for being here. All right, my name is Ali Porti, and I decided to do this event because I couldn't find any other public events for International Women's Day. International Women's Day was last Sunday, but I'm having it this week instead. All right, I want to say a special thank you to the panelists, to Jabeen Badi, who's an editor at Associated Reporters Abroad, Heike McCarron, who is the director of the German Marshall Fund of the United States, the Berlin office, Christine Thum, who is the director of Serve the City of Berlin, and Lisa Pippis, who is an image consultant here in Berlin. So thank you, ladies, for all being a part of the event today. And also a special thank you to those who helped me, Daphne Chang, who's taking photos, Caroline Schmidt, who's also taking photos, Angela Chota, Celine Zulu, and Angela Tawather. Thank you all. And for the women who dedicated some cakes that we will enjoy afterwards. I was introduced to International Women's Day from having worked for a charity in London, a charity that focused on giving women qualifications so that they could enter the British workforce, as well as a nonprofit organization in Washington, D.C. that empowers women and helps them run for political office. These organizations forever changed my life. I acknowledge each and every one of you here today, the women and the men drawn here by the significance of women's empowerment. And I want to speak about this empowerment role that we are all meant to play as human beings. We were all created to do good works on this earth. We were created to empower others, to lead in our communities, and to help others. We're not called to just simply use our university degrees and the nice things that come from our university degrees, like a nice house or a nice car. Surely we can enjoy those things, but we can't just sit and just enjoy them and not help other people. We've been given gifts and talents for the purpose of serving our generation. And for the women in this room, we are women of achievement and celebration, whatever our vocation is in life. The women's movement has changed lots of lives over the past century, including my own. And I'm sure that for the women in this room, we enjoy maternity leave and the right to vote, and the women that have gone before us to make that possible. Women have come a long way, but the level of inequality, assault, and abuse is still too high. The gender pay gap is far too wide. In this country, female workers in full-time employment positions only earn 77% of their male counterparts as his pay. There aren't enough women in senior business roles, and there aren't enough women in legislative leadership. In the United States, there are only 103 women out of the 535 seats in the total Congress of women occupying those seats. And the role of women is still too few. Not to mention all of that, women are being tricked and trafficked. 98% of all trafficking victims are women and girls. Women are forced into marriage, and they are being used in ways of sexual violence. More than 125 million women and girls today have been subjected to female genital mutilation in the 29 countries in Africa and the Middle East where this is being practiced. Women are seen as objects by popular culture. They're being hindered from being educated. In Kenya alone, 25% of 12 to 24-year-olds have lost their virginity by force. The list goes on. But the main thing that's on my heart, and what I've seen missing in a lot of International Women's Day speeches, is that before we can tackle any of these problems, we have to tackle our behavior as women and be good to one another and support one another as women. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And I'm sure that the women in this room know what I'm talking about when I say these things. This is an area of our female characters that we need to work on, which is supporting one another and lifting each other up and not looking at each other with competition and jealousy. Being a good, confident, and honorable woman doesn't change who you are. It really reveals who you are. To achieve real breakthroughs, we must firstly look at ourselves, resolve to die to self, so that we can support one another and truly mean it. If we use our time, talents, and treasures in the right way, there will be enough room for us all to lead in the space where we are, to help other women, and to make our communities a bit better than how we have found them. So I'd like to close in the words of Christine Caine, the founder of Propel magazine. A confident and honorable woman leads where she sees there's an area to lead. She's unselfish. She's uncompetitive with her fellow sisters and doesn't see them as rivals. She walks with humility and grace. She's unflinching in the face of trials. She's unsatisfied with the condition of the world, and she wants to do something about it. She's generous with her words, her thoughts, her resources, and her relations. She's unstuck in any one season as she moves from one season to the next. She's uncluttered. She deals with baggage. She drops it and she moves forward. She's unfazed by the naysayers. She's not hurried, trying to get to a place that the Almighty hasn't called her to yet. She's not pretentious. She's feminine, not trying to be a man. She's not bullied, and she knows that her history will not define her destiny. And lastly, she's in the world, but not of it. Thank you.
Journalism is dying. Foreign journalism is dying. All the bureaus were being killed, closed because of financial reasons. I'm talking about American bureaus, although actually this was also Britain. Germany had already gone through this process. Freelancers were starting to take over. And I thought, well, how are we going to make sure that newspapers in the United States or news outlets have coverage that is more than the Associated Press or Reuters? And at the same time, how do we make sure that freelancers, like myself at that time, stay alive? And so I came up with ARA, and I don't think I actually thought, or I don't think I realized what I was in for, to run a startup, to do everything that a startup needs, because I'm a journalist. I'm not a business person. I mean, my first accounting stuff was on paper. So we've come a long way since then. We have a staff of anywhere, depending on what time you're talking about, between 5 and 10 people, full-time, part-time, and more than 100 reporters around the world. We serve all the big outlets, both American, British, we serve German outlets as well. It's been hell, I will tell you that. And the most hellacious part of my job, or at least what I've found to be the most hellacious, is managing people. I mean, I don't think you should put journalists in charge of anything except journalism. But the truth is, you know, journalists are smart in one way. If we don't know something, we know how to go out and find out about it. We're masters of shortcuts. We're masters of common sense. And, you know, I've had a lot of great help. I will tell you something that's really interesting about ARA, though. In my newsroom in Berlin, which is, it's not the headquarters, but it's where all operations take place, most of ARA's existence, it has been all women, which is also really interesting. It started out 4 men and me, but I was the last man standing. And, and basically, now the number 2 is a man, but, and of course, lots of the journalists around the world are men. And I'm happy to take any candidate, male, female, German, American. In fact, we have a very diverse newsroom. There are Americans, but you know, they're Brits, Irish, Filipino, Brit, sorry, I said that, who else? German. So, we're very, very diverse, and I believe in diversity. This particular forum, they wanted me to talk about empowerment. I think there are two key things I want to really point out. In my career, obviously, I've done very well, and I've been very, very lucky. But I've definitely benefited and been helped by a series of mentors over the years. I mean, there were people early on in my career who really believed in me, gave me counsel, gave me advice, even beat me up when I was totally in the wrong or messing up. I wouldn't be the good journalist that I am today, or definitely the newsroom manager or startup owner without this mentorship. What I'm really sad to say is that every single one of my mentors, and I'd probably say there were about 10 in my life, were all men. So, and this came up actually, I went to Columbia University Journalism School, and we had a class list. And one day, about 5 years ago, somebody was like, hey, can more women volunteer to mentor some of these young journalists going to Columbia? And then that just started this discussion among the class list, among the women. And everybody was kind of recounting, yeah, it's true, we really haven't had many women mentors. I don't actually have an answer for why that is. I mean, 50% or more of newsrooms in America are women. So we don't actually suffer from lack of numbers there. If it was engineering, obviously it'd be different. Maybe tech, I don't know. But maybe it's about women, maybe not enough women being in leadership positions. I really can't answer why, but ever since that discussion, I have made a point of, I won't say favoring female interns, but if I have 2 interns and we don't have room for another one, but a woman comes and applies to me and says, I need an internship, could we intern with you? I will take them. I've really tried to mentor young women. I mean, I will mentor young men too, it's not a problem, but I never will forget that discussion, and I think what Ali said is really true. There are not enough people who actually step up. I think that women teach other women different things than men teach women in this mentor-mentee relationship. And I'm sure I would have benefited from having a woman who is more experienced than me. And that's not to say I haven't worked with great female journalists. I've just never been mentored by one. The other thing that I wanted to say is, as the Arabas, or Mama Bear, basically, one thing I have noticed in my female employees and reporters that sometimes I don't see in male reporters is a passivity. And I think that women have to be really aware that you can't sit back and be passive if you want something. It's much more likely for a male reporter to come to me and say, can I have more money? It's much more likely for a male reporter to come to me and say, oh, Jabeen, I'd really, really like to do that assignment. And they get it because they're asking. A lot of my female reporters do not ask. And I think some of this is cultural. I've noticed the Americans are faster to ask than even the young ones. My 22-year-old came to me, American, and was like, Jabeen, I really need a little more money, please. None of the Europeans have ever asked me. I think that to grow and develop in your career, and specifically maybe even end up in a leader position someday, should you want to, as a female, I think you always have to think, I can't be passive. I have to be responsible for my learning. I have to be responsible for my success. Because if you take that responsibility and that initiative, you will probably get somewhere. And I'm going to be very fast to acknowledge that there are all kinds of people who want to put you down and keep you down. I mean, I've sued a German company on sexism. Trust me, I know. But you cannot let that defeat you. No matter what, you can't lose the confidence. And you just have to say, there are these assholes out there, and move on and, sue them. But, move on and still do your thing and never let anyone impact your own self-worth or what you can do. If somebody had told me or put it in the terms with Ara, like, oh my God, do you know that you're about to be an entrepreneur? I probably would have said, oh my God, really? I'd run for the hills. I just didn't think about it. I was probably too stupid to think about what I was getting into, not understanding that I didn't have business skills or anything. I just went and got them. That's what I'm saying about, like, just, I think women really have to decide what they want and then go get it and never let anyone tell you you can't have it or that you're not good enough. And certainly, when you feel confident and have something to give back, give it back to men as well. Because honestly, my male reporters that have been mentored by me will probably find it very normal to have a female boss. So that's actually a good thing. So I think my time's up. Thank you.
As Alison said, my name is Heike McCarron. I work for the German Marshall Fund of the United States. I've been at that place for 23 years. I started when I was a young chick, knew nothing about the business, and and I never asked for anything. I'm one of those, but I feel I was given many opportunities. And my analysis of why I was given opportunities have to do with the fact that, I have to say, it's an American organization. My experience has been, I was promoted, the Germans among you will know the Peter principle. I think that applies to me. You get promoted until you're too dumb for your job. And I think that's what sort of happened to me. I was at the right place at the right time. I was with an organization that grew, that needed people, and that needed people that proved themselves. I don't have a PhD, I didn't go to Harvard, haven't even studied international relations like most others who I work with have. But I was given a chance to prove myself and I used it, and I'm very grateful for that, I have to say. I will never forget in the early days, Alison mentioned that I was put in charge of research grants. I was put in charge not only of regular research grant, I was put in charge of research grants from a former professor who hadn't greeted me on the floor at the Free University when I was still there. So that was a challenge at the beginning. And the other thing was, I came from a completely German environment. I had worked in a bank before, I had done an apprenticeship, this and that and the other thing, in a professional environment that was very hierarchical. That I came to my American job with the attitude, you only go to your boss when you really, really have a problem. Otherwise you don't bother your boss. Like 6 weeks into my job at the German Marshall Fund, my boss from Washington called me and said, Heike, what's the problem with you? Why are you never calling me? So, there are all sorts of things that are different in the American and the German culture. I'm sure it has changed here too. I don't even know because I haven't been in a German outfit for so long. In terms of women's empowerment, again, I've been thinking about what is similar and what is different. What I found as a German working for an American very different is no question that women are hired, no question that there's the same expectation in terms of performance with women or as men. It's all very scientific and quotation marks with metrics and whatnot, which I personally think is, well, one can have a discussion about. But in general, I mean, there is a serious effort at equal pay, equal treatment, equal what have you. Political correctness certainly plays a role there. In my experience, language matters. So I would criticize sort of sometimes I find a little, not arrogant, but sort of the German criticism of political correctness, that it's all ridiculous, that it's just glossing over things and doesn't get to the real problem. I do think language matters, and language consciousness helps to make a difference. Despite that, there are certain glass ceilings also. Despite all the political correctness, despite a very conscious effort as women's empowerment, in my experience, there are glass ceilings. The glass ceilings are the male networks. The glass ceiling are certain, I think you also alluded to, a certain way of being competitive and fighting it out and going there and being forceful and all that. That happen between men and that women, in my experience, have not very seldom been a part of. I can just hope that it's different now and that women are learning it. I never learned it. But I was promoted nevertheless, so I guess I was very lucky. Today I find also still a difference between men and women. The one you described, I would say it is, yes? Oh, there you are. I'm sorry, I was looking for you. No, the one you described. But I experience more sort of in cultural terms, frankly. You know, it starts with the CVs. You get an application from a German, you get an application from American, night and day. Young Americans learn at high school how to present themselves. We don't. I mean, maybe you know, I never learned it. That's for starters. You learn all about self-esteem, which is also something that is only very gradually taking hold here as a concept. It wasn't a concept when I grew up. But that means that, in my experience, there's greater self-confidence, and that is good. I think we have something to learn from the American way of doing that. It is not perfect, it's far from perfect. I could go into all sorts of issues which I find hypocritical in the American system, but nevertheless, I also feel I've benefited from given an opportunity. I should add that I do not come from an academic background. My parents I'm the first in my family that went to university. In that sense, also I came a long way, and I feel I was given an opportunity. In this American outfit, I would not have been given at the German university or research institute or foundation. That's it for me. Thank you.
So I would like, first of all, to thank Ellie for this chance. Ellie's middle name is Tenacious. She has come up with so much resistance in putting this on and has gone forth. So you're a true example, Ellie, of making things happen for women. Thank you. A couple of hours ago, I was at church, and I have been blessed in my church to learn that I am fearfully and wonderfully made. I've been blessed to learn that each and every one of you is fearfully and wonderfully made. And if I didn't know that we were all fearfully and wonderfully made, I could not do my job, because I'm in the business of giving feedback. And feedback isn't always nice, it's not always pleasant. And I think if you hold on to the truth about being fearfully and wonderfully made, you will be able to handle feedback. Without it, it is too painful. In the business of executive coaching, it doesn't really matter whether you are a kindergarten teacher or an artist or an accountant or a corporate executive. It's all the same. It boils down to the fact that you are able to express your personality, you're able to communicate your expertise, your goals, and your vision, that you are able to do it confidently, clearly, and with creativity. It is my experience that the look and sound of leadership is more of a struggle for women than it is for men. I have experienced that men get more direct feedback than women do, that bosses are fearful of giving women feedback, and they hold back on it. So men get direct feedback, women are often simply not given the feedback. And if they're given the feedback, I say they, we, I, are incredulous. We cannot believe it. We get this feedback and we can't believe that can't possibly be true. I have worked with people where they have done a 360 in a company and they have received feedback and they don't believe it. We spoke with Delphine this morning. I ask my children for feedback about my communication style and they say, "Mommy, you don't listen." And I'm like, that's not true. So I think that this thing of feedback is so crucial. So what can we do to be more empowered? First of all, I think we can proactively seek out feedback. We can proactively seek it out, we can ask for it, we can ask for a lot of questions, and we can listen to the answers. We can assume that whatever feedback we get, however marvelous it is or however challenging it is, there is a grain of truth in it. I think it's important that we do not ask family, friends, or people who like or love us if the feedback is true. That we do not do that. It is much better if we get an external group of support around us where we can get honest feedback. In Berlin, there are lots of places you can go. Toastmasters is one, somewhere where you can walk into the room and 30 people are going to give you feedback on how you look and how you sound. So that whatever your boss has said or not said, you can go out and you can find this out. I give at women's organizations once or twice a year for €8 the chance to come in and have 20 and 30 people give you feedback on how you look and sound. They have no vested interest in being positive or negative. It's just feedback. There was a wonderful article in this month's Harvard Business Review. You can go online, it's for free. And Roger Martin, who does integrated thinking, says it is, in the article he says, it is impossible for us to learn what we think we already know. I think I'm a fabulous listener with my kids. I can't learn it. I have to ask them and I have to find out when they say, you don't. But we cannot learn what we think we already know. And he closes the article by saying that we all systematically prevent ourselves from getting ahead by being dismissive of bosses, of users, clients, colleagues who disagree with us. People who disagree with us are a treasure chest of what we need to do in order to move ahead. So, I think that if we hold on to this idea that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, God has spoken that we are fearfully and wonderfully made, we can go out and we can take any kind of feedback and learn and grow from it, because we will not be blown about or scared by it. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. We go out and we ask for feedback. We take it. We're fearless. We learn. We grow. We unleash our potential. I think that's being empowered.
Hi, can you still listen? Yeah, okay, there's lots of information. Okay, I'm Christine Thom and I'm German, and I grew up in the south of Germany, moved to Berlin a long time ago, so I'm able to call myself a Berliner. I moved 4 times here in Berlin, so I would say I'm a Berliner, and I know the city very well. Okay, I try with my English, so please. I say a few words to Surf the City and then to me and how I started it. Surf the City, I didn't invent it, first of all. It started 10 years ago in Brussels, so I must say. It's the founder is Carlton Deal. He started it 10 years ago in Brussels, and I heard about it 3 years ago, and I was like, wow, this is what Berlin needs. And well, it's very simple. It's like Berlin has a lot of volunteer agencies, so I thought, why do we need Surf the City? Why another thing, that goes in the same direction? Okay, volunteer agencies, they, it's okay that they exist, but what I found out in speaking to friends and neighbors is that a lot of times it's difficult for people to participate, to go. People work, well, some people work, but if you have a work, then you come home and you think of, yeah, I want to do something. I want to do something good for the city. I want to give something back to the city, but I don't know how. First of all, I need to know how and what and where and with who. It's way too much, so I'm not going to do it, But there are lots of people, who want to do something, who want to be involved. And so I was like, okay, no, Serve the City is actually a good idea. So I shared the idea with lots of friends around me, you know, and I hoped that somebody would jump in and say, yes, I'm going to start it. Well, after, you know, a couple of months, that didn't happen. And it was because I never thought that I could start something like that. And I just want, if somebody sitting here is thinking the same thing, yeah, you're in good company, I tell you. And anyway, so I finally, because I'm a practical person, I decided, no, you know, after a couple of months talking, maybe we should do something. And I started small. So in my neighborhood, you know, just with 8 people, you know, it's like, okay, let's do something. Actually, before we did the project, I asked a good friend, and one is sitting here, Melinda, you know, would you join me, you know, because I didn't want to do that alone. And another friend, I asked her as well, do you want to join? Yes, so we are 3 people, 3 women. I was like, we just start where we are. And so we started, and the first project was 8 people, men and women, together, since I love, you know, the teamwork. Yeah, collecting garbage, that was it. And distributing cookies, which wasn't a great success, but it was, anyway, so we started with 8 people. And at that time we decided, well, we do this monthly, because I wanted to do something regular, you know. And at that time I had no idea what it means. You know, it's like jumping into the water. You know, I've never led a team. I've never done like volunteer work in that sense, you know, but, you know, since living here for more than, oh, that sounds really old, 20 years, you know, I love the city, and I assume that we all live here. So we all enjoy parts of the city that are wonderful, like culture, like, you know, spring's coming up and the life on the street and whatever, you know, like we enjoy it, but we also know the dark sides of the city. And so I was like, okay, I want to see some change in the city that I love. And so we decided every month we're going to do projects, not knowing what that means. Building a network, you know, dealing with volunteers who show up at the last minute, organize, you know, things that I'm a person, if I give my word and I come to a facility like a homeless shelter, or like we have cards here for a refugee camp, and we've been there before, and anyway, so like elderly homes, whatever, you know, I want to come there. I want to be faithful, you know, I want to really show up. And that's been a really a struggle, you know, that it really, but it worked out almost all of the times. And so I want to be reliable. So, okay, my paper, hold on. Yeah, and it's, Ellie said that, yeah, I started it 3 years ago, so September 2011. So that's brand new. At that time, I had no idea how it develops. Like I said, we were like 8 volunteers in the beginning, and now, next Saturday, for example, we have like 8 projects and about 50 volunteers. Oh. And that's like every month. And it's really touching. And just to say, now in the core team, we're not 3 people anymore, but we are 9 people. And for me, it's a privilege to be with this team and to lead this team. It's men and women. And for me, I don't know how this, it's a journey, to be honest. I don't feel that I'm an expert, but what I want to do is I want to see people with their talent and with their passion and what they love to do, and give them a room where they can actually be a part of it. And that's what we experienced with Serve the City. I have seen a lot of change within me also, because one saying in Serve the City is that we cross the line. When you live in the city, you realize that on one side, you know, this is a nice area, this is wonderful, you know, but we go maybe to other districts, it's not so nice. On one side there's safety, on the other side there's danger. And, you know, it's time to cross that line. Like, I know that Melinda and myself, for example, before I started Serve the City, I've never talked to a person who's homeless or marginalized, what we say, you know? And in the beginning, it was tough, you know, I was like, I don't know what to say, you know, I'm shy. I'm actually shy, I really am. So this is something Also interesting to stand in front of people. But I was shy. I didn't know what to say. And what do you talk? How do you talk to this person? Does this person understand me? But you know, step by step with other people, friends and other volunteers and people alongside, crossing that line, you know, this person, this homeless person or marginalized person, we are not calling them by their need, but by their name. We know that this person is called Uwe or Peter, whatever, and that changes something. And I must say that through these, a lot of times I'm like, yeah, I would love Serve the City to grow, and you know that Berlin has changed and we all come together and wonderful. And yeah, we'll see where it goes. But one thing is, it changed me. Like, Serve the City doesn't need another person, but I need Serve the City. I need opportunities where I cross the line, where I do something to step out of my comfort zone with other people, with friends. And that's changing. That's changing my mindset. That's changing, you know, what I think of people. And our group, we have people from different generations, the volunteers, we have people from different cultures. I love that, because that's what Berlin is like. And so we learn from each other. And for me, that's just wonderful to see when people participate and when they are excited about something and they can contribute what they have. And anyway, so I think it's 4 minutes. Yeah, if you want to know more, you can talk to me or grab a postcard or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. There will be cake and tea in the room to my right, your left. So please enjoy, talk, network, get to know one another. And again, thank you for sparing some time from your Sunday to be here today.
Kolokalian suka video ini, kasih thumbs up dan subscribe.